The Weight of Less, a story. Mark and Elena Ramirez used to joke that they had made it. 2 incomes, 1 house in the suburbs north of Dallas, with a brick mailbox Mark had grouted himself one ambitious weekend. 2 healthy kids. A fluffy golden doodle named Maple who cost more per haircut than Mark had paid for his own barber growing up. Between Elena's job running scheduling for a regional hospital network and Mark's IT consulting, they cleared just under $190,000 a year. On paper, they were exactly the family the commercials were made for. And yet, every Saturday morning, standing beneath the white fluorescent hum of Costco or Walmart, pushing a cart the size of a canoe, they felt poorer than they had any right to feel. It started with cereal. The family-sized box Elena had bought for years suddenly looked thinner in her hand. Same blue label. Same smiling cartoon sun. Same price, give or take. But somehow less inside, as if the box had quietly exhaled. She held it up to the light the way she might inspect a suspicious check. Then the tortilla chips shrank. The protein bars went from 12 to 10 without a single word of apology. Ice cream containers lost ounces along the bottom while the price climbed another $1. The way the tide cakes sand out from under your heels while you're looking at the horizon. The laundry detergent kept its familiar broad-shouldered shape but quietly slipped from 154 loads to 130. Didn't this used to last longer? Elena asked one night, shaking an almost empty detergent bottle like a maraca over the washer. Mark squinted at the fine print, then at the back, then at the fine print again. He had the patient, slightly affronted expression of a man reading a contract he'd already signed. They cut the concentration and the load count, he said, and added $3. Same bottle. They just believed in it less. The kids noticed, too. In the unfiltered way, kids notice everything that affects them personally. "Why are the chips always gone?" their son Mateo complained, 11 years old and outraged, holding the bag upside down over his open mouth. "Because the bag is mostly air now," Mark muttered. He wasn't entirely joking. He'd started thinking of the bags as little Mylar lies, sold by the pound of nothing. At Sam's Club, they began comparing the small orange unit prices instead of the big, bold shelf prices, leaning in like jewelers. Elena started photographing labels on her phone because the companies kept rearranging the package sizes between visits, a slow shell game played across months. A bag of coffee dropped from 16 ounces to 12 and kept the same fat cylinder of a canister. Bacon packages lost strips. Juice bottles developed deeper and deeper dimples in the bottom, the plastic curving up into the product like a thumb pressed into bread. Even Maple's dog food shrank, which felt, somehow, like the final insult. The dog had done nothing to deserve it. And yet, their pantry was overflowing. That was the part that confused them most. The shelves groaned with snacks, frozen entrees and glossy boxes, sugary granola bars, microwave breakfasts that promised the morning would be easy, electric blue drinks, and a whole battalion of foods stamped with the word healthy in a reassuring green font. There was food everywhere. There was food falling out of the cabinets. And there was, somehow, never anything to eat. Both of them were tired all the time, too, in a low, constant way they'd stopped questioning, the way you stop hearing a refrigerator until it switches off. Mark fell asleep on the couch by 9. Elena drank coffee at 4 in the afternoon and lay awake at midnight anyway, calculating. One evening, after the kids were down, she spread the month's grocery receipts across the kitchen table like tarot cards and added them up twice because the first number couldn't be right. "How are we spending this much?" she said slowly, "and still running out of food?" Mark didn't have an answer. The question hung in the kitchen long after they'd gone to bed. It was the kind of question that, once asked honestly, will not let a person rest until something changes. The next Saturday, instead of another expedition into the warehouse, they tried the farmer's market downtown on a whim, mostly because Elena couldn't stand the thought of the canoe cart again. At first, it felt absurdly expensive. $5 for a small basket of tomatoes that would not survive the week? Eggs from a farm 40 minutes east that cost nearly double the grocery store dozen? A round, blistered loaf of real sourdough from a woman who'd apparently been awake since 3 in the morning to make it. Mark did the math in his head and winced. But something strange happened over the next few days. The food filled them up. Not the heavy, sleepy fullness of a frozen lasagna, but a quieter satisfaction that lasted, that didn't send Mateo back into the pantry 40 minutes later hunting for something else. The strawberries went soft and molded by Thursday, but for 3 days they tasted like an actual memory of strawberries. The bread went stale instead of staying eerily soft for 2 weeks, and Elena understood for the first time that softness had been a chemistry experiment, not a kindness. The eggs had yolks the deep orange of a sunset, where the others had always been the pale yellow of an apology. Over the following weeks, without ever sitting down and drafting a plan, they shifted. Processed snacks slid from staples to occasional treats. They stopped buying single-serve packs, which Mark had come to think of as the purest distillation of the whole racket. Tiny portions, towering markups, a mountain of wrapper for a thimble of food. Elena learned to cook in great forgiving batches, pots of soup, trays of roasted vegetables, rice bowls assembled from whatever the week had left behind. Mark, who liked a project, bought dried beans and oats and flour and potatoes in honest, ugly bulk and felt obscurely proud of the burlap. They picked up other defenses along the way, almost by instinct. They bought the store brand when the ingredient list was identical and only the logo cost extra. They watched the unit price and ignored the package theater. They froze meat and bread before it could turn. They switched to refillable cleaning sprays, ran only full loads of laundry, used less detergent than the cap insisted on, and discovered the cap had been lying about that too. They walked past the checkout impulse rack without making eye contact. They shopped from a list, drank water instead of the electric blue drinks, and joined a produce co-op that dropped a box of whatever was in season on the porch each week like a small agricultural surprise. They walked past the checkout impulse rack without making eye contact. They shopped from a list, drank water instead of the electric blue drinks, and joined a produce co-op that dropped a box of whatever was in season on the porch each week like a small agricultural surprise. None of it was dramatic. No single Saturday felt like a turning point. It was just 100 small refusals, repeated. And then, around the 6-month mark, the surprising things arrived all at once, the way they tend to. The grocery spending dropped. Not by a heroic amount, but enough that Elena double-checked the math again, this time hoping she was right. Mark's pants fit differently. He'd lost 18 pounds without ever once using the word diet. Elena lost 22 and noticed it first in her sleep, which had quietly returned to her like a cat that had been gone a while. Mateo started eating apples with peanut butter instead of neon-frosted snack cakes and complained about it for exactly 4 days before forgetting he'd ever mind it. Their daughter, Sophia, 9, took to standing on a stool beside Elena at the stove, stirring things with enormous seriousness, learning that dinner was something you made rather than something you defrosted. Even Maple got leaner and brighter-eyed once they stopped translating every flicker of affection into a treat. One Saturday morning in spring, the 4 of them moved through the farmer's market carrying canvas bags. Maple's leash looped around Mateo's wrist, a man with a guitar playing something gentle near the herb stand. The strawberries were back. The air smelled like cut basil and warm bread. Elena started laughing. "Remember," she said, "when we thought hauling home more processed food from the warehouse was saving us money?" Mark nodded, paying the bread woman, who recognized them now. "We were paying more," he said, "for less food and worse food, and calling it a deal." That was the thing nobody had told them. Shrinkflation had never really been about ounces. The shrinking package was only the visible edge of it. What had actually been shrinking, quietly, for years, was the value of what they brought home, and the nourishment in it, and the plain satisfaction of a meal that asked something of them and gave something back. They had spent so long hunting for the bigger bag, the better coupon, the cleverer warehouse membership, chasing the trick instead of stepping out of its way. In the end, the only real defense turned out to be embarrassingly simple. Stop buying the things engineered to fool you. Buy fewer, truer things. Let the bread go stale on schedule. Let the strawberries mean something for 3 honest days. The cart was lighter now. So, somehow, were they.